right, go ahead. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Will, or also known as Darth Tuba on YouTube. I have actually two channels, Darth Tuba Star Wars Unboxing Show, which is all about Star Wars themed, very positive, loving Star Wars since the first movie came out, and collecting and just unboxing items on that channel. It's been around for about 5 or 6 years now at this point. And then I also have another channel called Poppin' Into Disney, where we just kind of walk around and do just very walk around videos, basically so people can have fun in their house if they're doing exercise with their exercise bikes or their walking machines, being able to just feel like they're walking in Disney. So I'm just doing those two things. So
What made you decide to do a YouTube channel?
I started seeing how many people were doing them, and they seemed like a lot of fun. And actually, as a Star Wars fan, it's been a hugely great outlet for me, because I'm very positive about my love of the franchise, and I like to share that out. And here in Disney, it's very prominent, obviously, with Galaxy's Edge. So I make a lot of trips here, so I just use the time to record videos walking around Batu and stuff like that, and just sharing that out with people who maybe can't always get there. So
What do you think of Galaxy's Edge?
absolutely, I love it. I love it. It's like I understand some of the complaints about it, but to me, it's the only place in any park, anywhere, any franchise, anywhere, that you walk in and you truly feel immersed in another world. And I know that they've fallen back on some of it. I still, in terms of they couldn't keep the names of all the meals. They had to change them so people understood what Tipyip was or what Endorian meat was, because it was obviously made up. But I just love being immersed in it. My family was also able to do the Halcyon Galactic Star Cruiser.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Have you experienced it?
I have experienced it, and it is, and will be the greatest thing that Disney Imagineering and Lucasfilm have ever done. I knew walking through it that it would not last. Not that I had premonition, but that it was just what you were getting. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, it's so expensive! It's so expensive." Yes, it was expensive, but for what you were getting, to me, it wasn't expensive enough, and it wasn't going to sustain itself unless they sold it out every single day. However, people in the know have said that it's not over, it's not out. I know that they've turned it into Imagineering offices, which is basically meaning they're just using the space. The Imagineers just want to go there and have fun in there, because the bridge, the lightsaber training, all that stuff is so amazing that they can set up desks and computers and design all the new things that they're doing. But I'm pretty sure, and the reason I really feel that is that the sign isn't down yet. They would have taken that sign down the day after. But when you're driving down the road, there it is, Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser. It's still there. So I think they have hopes to bring it back in some capacity, because it was amazing. And
what about Star Wars Launch Bay?
Launch Bay was great for pre-COVID. I'm sorry to say that it's they just haven't put any effort into it. I enjoyed pre-COVID. I enjoyed going there to see the movie that they would show, and they would always update it. And they bring out the new players that are coming in, and people working on this TV show or that, or this cartoon or whatever, the next movie, and that was really great. And then they would come out and you'd see new props, whether they were real props or just reproductions. It was really cool to see that all set up, and then you had a really cool store, that connected at the end.
Yeah, which is still closed.
Right, which is unlike any other store in Disney. It was basically kind of a high-end collectible store, which was really nice to have there. After COVID, I was appreciating that they had it as a rest area. I don't remember that, but when you have to go there, you take your masks off, and I was very appreciative of that, because I know that it was such a weird time, and it was nice to be able to just sit in air conditioning and relax a little bit and be among the Star Wars music and everything else. Since then, I do appreciate the meeting Chewie, meeting Darth Vader or Kylo or BB-8. I just hope that they can do something with it. If they don't, I'm okay with it. I feel like I know that they're going to be plussing Star Tour soon, again with another adventure, and I know they're doing some updates to Galaxy's Edge with the Falcon. So, that's where we're going with it. That's where we're going. I would just recommend, the only thing I would say is Disneyland versus Florida. California versus Florida. I don't know why California has kind of softened on the time frame, because the time frame is between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. It's a very finite amount of time. It's like 6 months, and that's the timeline you're in when you walk around Galaxy's Edge. That's why you don't see any other characters other than Rey and Kylo and the First Order. Well, in the Disneyland in California, you can actually see Luke Skywalker was walking around there recently. Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Fennec Shand. Pretty much, they bring on a lot of characters that kind of because it's a locals park, and they just bring on new characters to get locals back in. Here, they're a little slower to do. We have the Mandalorian, and that's great. And I'm just hoping that they start to open that up a little bit more.
Do you think they should concentrate a bit more on the Empire instead of the First Order all the time?
I understand the reasoning why they didn't do that, because I feel like, yes, that's our Star Wars. Anybody in their 40s or 50s, that's their Star Wars. But having a wife who was I'm a teacher, and my wife is a teacher, and we both have seen the next generations of fans, and the next generations of fans, like, there has been so much love for the prequels in the last, half a decade, which to me, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the prequels, I had no issue with the prequels, but I saw a lot of people that did, and I found it very interesting that things have kind of turned around. And I think that's because the next generation, Star Wars is a generational thing now. Star Wars is very much like a grocery store where you take the things off the shelf that you like. Now, Disney will take whatever's popular, most popular, and will put that out there. Right now, first it was the sequel stuff, now it seems like Mandalorian. So we're going to see. I'm curious about what happens with, with Andor being so successful and so, seemingly very much positively received. I hope that they keep doing things differently, not all the same kind of thing, because I appreciate them having different types of stars. I love the Bad Batch. I thought that was a really great cartoon. I loved Obi-Wan. I loved Ahsoka. So I watched the cartoons that came out that kind of led into those things, and I appreciated those. So as far as Empire versus First Order, I hope that they're able to kind of open up something that allows it, because I don't think it's bad to have it. I understand where their thinking was to not have it. They're trying to, the statement was there's going to be far more Star Wars ahead of us than there is behind us, which I agree with. There already has been. If you think about how many hours have been logged of Star Wars live action content, we're 10 times the amount of what came before, came even with the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. So I understand that a lot. At the same time, I do feel like there would be a huge following if you could see Vader leading a few troopers, or Darth Maul walking through there. You know what I mean? Both, generations. So I'm sure that Disney's trying to figure out how to do it and have it make sense, because they are all about story, and they want to make it work where it makes sense. And I understand that they want to push. Their big thing is you tell your Star Wars story. That's the whole thing they're doing in all of Hollywood studios. Is you're in the story. It's no longer how movies are made, it's you being in the story. And that changes how we see things, and that changes how things are, done. So I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful for it. I never get bored of being there and building a lightsaber with a friend of mine in a couple of days. It's my third one.
Yeah, I've been meaning to do that myself.
It's amazing. That is worth every penny, because it's not just building a lightsaber. It's not just getting a lightsaber. It's having this amazing experience and plussing it to no end. So,
And finally, as a Star Wars fan, I'm going to ask you, what do you think of Star Trek?
Star Trek? Star Trek was my fandom. I'm both. Star Trek was my fandom from '87, when Next Generation came out, because there was no Star Wars. That was the dark times. So I really got into Next Generation, and then because of that, I watched. My brother and my dad and I all watched the original series back when I was a kid, like really young. And he watched it with his dad, so there's a family connection there. And then I watched Deep Space Nine, I watched Voyager, I watched Enterprise, and all that was like, for a while there, I was juggling both. So I absolutely love it, and I loved Picard. Although I will say, I was really happy to see Picard season 3 when they brought the rest of the bridge team back, and that was really cool. So love them both.
You ever think there'll be a Star Trek land?
A Star Trek land? They've had a couple of things. I remember, I came here for my honeymoon. And we went to Universal, that was 31 years ago, so 94. And we went into Universal Studios when it was just Universal Studios, Florida. And they had a Star Trek experience. And it was basically...
And didn't they have that in Vegas too?
No, all right, I'll get to that. This was just a video thing where you basically sat in a green screen, and they put you in a uniform, and you read lines, and then they actually superimposed you with all the original cast. And it was like, and then they gave you, it was like $30, and they gave you and it was like a 10-minute adventure. And it was really fun. For a while, there was a theme park in Virginia, King's Dominion. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's in Richmond.
No.
and they had a lot of Star Trek theming. There was no ride, but they had characters walking around and stuff like that. And yes, the Las Vegas. In fact, a lot of people said, Star Trek did Galaxy's Edge first with the Star Trek experience, because it was basically walking in to. It wasn't really, because it wasn't like a land. It was basically just like walking into Quark's bar in Deep Space Nine, and that kind of like setup. And then they had 2 rides, 2 attractions. One on the bridge of the Enterprise, one on Voyager, or not Voyager, but with the Voyager, some of the Voyager cast. There was a museum there, and they had walk-around characters. But it was also a casino, so that was a little bit weird, because you couldn't really go there with your kids. So, or you had to make sure you stayed on this side of the line. So it was just a little. Putting in a casino, I felt, was where they made their mistake. I think if they had dedicated the land to it, I think it would be.
They must have had Quark run the place then.
Yeah, right, exactly. But we did, and Quark. Well, they just did that. They did just have a fan event in Universal Hollywood. They had a big Star Trek event going on there. It was in Universal Studios Hollywood, which I thought was interesting. We were there that day, but we couldn't stay that night, so we were watching them set up, and they had a Quark's bar being set up.
All right, cool.
So it was fun.
All right, any other website you need to plug? You have a Facebook page, Instagram, anything like that?
Just look for me on Instagram at Darth Tuba. Darth Tuba's unboxing page on Facebook. And as I said, if you just type in Darth Tuba's Star Wars Unboxing Show, it's exactly what the title. The title is exactly what the channel is. You will find it on YouTube, and that's where I do most of my interaction.
All right, awesome. It was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks so much.
Thanks.